Hi, and welcome along to a game of two halves with Mr. Mark Goldbridge. Of course, the season has now ended, and Mark's probably a bit like me, where he's like, yeah, thank God. You know what I mean? Right. Especially Mark, I feel. I get that feeling for you, Mark.
Yeah, well, apart from the fact, typical United, we probably played the best we've played all season against Villa. I want to apologise to Villa, by the way. I mean, that United playing with no pressure, just suddenly start playing good football, and then one of the worst refereeing decisions of the season. It's probably just cost you 100 million quid. I mean, I do think that's sort of been swept under the carpet a lot, because I think if that was Arsenal or Liverpool, we would never hear the end of it. But
yeah,
I'm very glad the season's over. In short, yes.
Yeah. I mean, actually, on that, because yesterday should have been a day of pure joy for every Liverpool fan.
Yeah.
Because obviously they lifted the title. They were able to do it this time and parade it in front of their fans. They weren't able to do that the last time they won it because COVID was on, right? But it's kind of been marred by this idiot who drove his car through crowded streets, because millions of people out on the street for that parade, and is injured. Thankfully, nobody at this moment in time has died, but injured a load of fans. I mean, it's appalling. Really, really appalling, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, look, unfortunately, it's not just, I mean, we know the world people do for clicks and stuff like that. You couldn't not see that footage yesterday, because I don't really understand why normal football accounts think it's a good idea to share that when you don't really know what's going on. But that's the world we live in. I'm just, as you say, very grateful that there is no, at this time, fatalities, because to see what happened, yeah, I'm sure it will come out what happened. So ultimately, it's just about Liverpool fans being at a parade justifiably because their teams had a great season. And again, we're saying those words that we're old enough to unfortunately have heard before. No football fan should be going to things like that and coming away seriously injured. So yeah, just thoughts and prayers with everybody involved in that, because it's just another sad stain on football when those things happen.
Yeah, really, really sickening. All the best for all those families that have been affected by what happened yesterday. But just getting back to the football, of course, when we look now, we know confirmation of everything that's happened. Starting with the teams that went down: Leicester, Ipswich, and Southampton. We knew a while back, a few weeks ago,
at the start of the season.
Yeah, we knew at the start of the season. All three of those relegated. Southampton, Arsenal, we played them on Sunday. You can see why. And then Arsenal, just playing in gear 1 or 2, just comfortably won that game. I mean, all three of those going down. Tottenham, by the way, you had this so-called brilliant season, and they've won a trophy in the end, but 22 losses, Mark. The first team ever to lose 22 games, right, and not go be relegated. They only got 38 points. They didn't even get 40 points, which is normally the benchmark that keeps you in the league. I've got this question for you, Mark. Big Ange, if you was in charge of Tottenham, would you sack him? Right? Because you remember, Manchester United were in a similar position like this last year, where, Eric Ten Hag had just beaten Man City in the final to win an FA Cup. You guys ended up keeping him. Or would you be ruthless and say, no, actually, that league form was horrendous. We need to bring in somebody new. I'm really interested to, as a person that's kind of gone through it with Ten Hag, what your decision would be.
I think it's easy if you're an Arsenal or a Liverpool, because you sack him because you've got a recent history of being successful. I think for Tottenham, like, we joke about the fact that they don't win trophies. So it just seems a bit weird that he's won your biggest trophy in my lifetime, and then you're going to sack him. You're right. United got it wrong doing what they did with Ten Hag. And also, my big concern with Spurs is that next season in the Champions League, it's not like these players are suddenly going to get the mentality to change. They're light switch players. So you could see a scenario where they end up having to sack Ange anyway, because they're not going to win the Champions League. They're not going to get in the top 4. So it's going to be a drop off next season anyway. So I think the common sense approach is to part part ways is the way I would do it, because I think for Ange it might be a good idea to step out, because I can only see it getting worse. But I still go back to the fact that Spurs sacking the guy who's won your best trophy in a lifetime is just seems weird. So I think mutual parting of the ways is probably the way to do it. I think sacking's a bit harsh, but keeping him, you're right, it's probably going to end up bad if they keep him, and they probably need a bit of a reboot again.
Okay. As I said, Leicester, Ipswich, Southampton all relegated. We know the 3 teams that are going to replace them as well: Sunderland, Burnley, and Leeds United.
Yeah.
Will they suffer the same fate as those 3 and go straight back down? Or do you think those teams are going to have... I mean, listen, we don't know what they're going to do in the transfer market yet, but could you see those 3 surviving?
I'd love them all to survive, because you talk about your Southampton game there, and everybody, even United, have had that. I think we beat them twice as well, which shows you how bad they are. It's just when that week comes out, and if you're in a title race next year and Liverpool have got Sunderland, you just sort of like, oh, we want a competitive Premier League. But I think, I said it last year, I'll say it again, all 3 go down for me. Certainly Sunderland and Burnley. Leeds have got a chance, but then you've got to get 40 points to stay up. And no one's been anywhere near that. And I think 40 points for a newly promoted team is really difficult, because the Premier League is so competitive. Wolves, Everton, these aren't gimme points. So I think all 3 go down. I think it's a big problem for the Premier League, but I don't know how they're going to solve it.
Yeah, I think maybe Leeds could survive, because they're going to spend some money. So they could survive. I mean, Burnley, they kind of made their way to by being really, really good defensively. Could they replicate that and bring it back? Then you've got to score goals in this Premier League as well, right? You can't just hold out resolutely for every single game. So, but I see maybe a shout for Leeds surviving. Going to the top of the league, as we know, Liverpool, clear winners, 84 points, 10 points ahead of Arsenal in second place, who finished on 74. Manchester City recovered their season to finish 3rd on 71. Chelsea get into 4th place. That big win, 1-0 win over Nottingham Forest, that got them into 4th place. And by the skin of their teeth in the end, after at one stage, I remember when they played us a couple of weeks ago, Matty Renton was saying to me, he didn't say if, he said, when we beat you, we'll be in 2nd place and we're going to overtake you. By the skin of their teeth, because they had 66 points, same as Villa. Even if Villa would have got a draw, they would have gone past Newcastle, because Newcastle lost at home to Everton. Newcastle in the top 5, they get that last Champions League place. Villa, Europa League place in 6th. And the Conference League place goes to Nottingham Forest, who really fell off at the end of the season, finishing in 7th. What did you make of that final day sort of, race for that Champions League place?
Well, I don't know. I think the Premier League season this season, with the relegation being obvious and Liverpool winning the league being obvious, I do feel it's been a good Premier League season. But I got to say, I found the final day really a damp squib. I thought it was dull. Chelsea winning 1-0 at Forest, you'd expect Forest to score in a game. It's a bit like Man United in the Europa League final, not scoring in the biggest game of the season. Newcastle losing to Everton, but still getting in on goal difference, because Villa were terrible at Old Trafford as well. It's like, I mean, look,
they all bottled it, didn't they? Like, you think about it, like Newcastle and Villa, both of those teams bottled it on the last day. They're both in games they're expected to win. What was Emi Martinez doing in that game, by the way? I mean, it was, even he bottled it. And you just think to yourself, if Newcastle had not have made it and lost at home to Everton, I mean, that would have been one of the biggest bottle jobs of all time. When the pressure came on those 2 teams, I think, you know what? 3 teams there, the pressure came on. Newcastle, Villa, and Nottingham Forest. And none of them could handle it. I think this is where you see the separation between, those sort of clubs and, say, a Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea, those clubs who are used to winning or used to being under pressure to go out there and win games. When the pressure came on those 3, all 3 of them just bottled it on that last day.
Yeah, and look, I've seen a lot of people saying, congratulations to the outsiders for Champions League football, Chelsea, who spent 1.5 billion in the last 2 years. I mean, I sort of take that on board. But to be fair to Chelsea, I would forget that statement because I almost feel that they've had a good season to get in there. They have spent a lot of money, but they're probably going to win a trophy on Wednesday. They're favourites to do that. Champions League football, they're going to make a lot of money. But I think Chelsea are probably a little bit fortunate, and I think their fans know they're a little bit fortunate because I think, Forest were in the top 3, I think, for most of the season. And when you look at their last 8 games, it's incredible the points they've dropped. So they've bottled it, understandably, because they're inexperienced in that situation. Aston Villa, I think, were terrible on that final day against United. Absolutely terrible for the players they've got, the bench they've got. United had only played midweek. And then Newcastle, you'd expect to beat Everton. So Chelsea will take a big sigh of relief. You are where you deserve to be on 38 games. But as I said, I just felt it was a really disappointing. Villa should have pumped United, Newcastle should have pumped Everton, and Forest should have really played better against Chelsea. And it would have been a very interesting scenario then. But you get what you get. You get what you deserve. The only thing I feel bad for Villa for is I just think that as much as they were bad against us, it was 0-0. And if that goal had been given, there's not long left. There's not long left. And that point would have put them in there, but you're not going to get any recourse. You've seen it as an Arsenal fan. You get these horrible decisions and the Premier League and the PGMOL just do nothing about it.
Well, I think, listen, the season ended for me as far as referees are concerned, how it started with them being very, very poor. Will anything be done about it ahead of next season? Probably not. You know what I mean? Something drastic needs to happen.
They've not even apologised, have they?
No, they just said, they said, basically the referee blew up before, so VAR couldn't intervene. He's a very inexperienced referee. What was he doing refereeing such a huge game like that, £100 million on it? I mean, it's crazy. You know what I mean? And again, these decisions, I always say, it starts from the top. Howard Webb, he's presided over this. But,
sack him, I would.
Who sacks him if he's to be sacked? I mean, the PGMOL is like a kind of cartel. You know what I mean? Where there's a law unto themselves. I mean, it's been really, really.
They put you in charge, Don Robbie. You sort it out.
It's
certainly not Don Howard Webb, is it? It's something else.
Well, it looks like Don Howard Webb because whatever he says goes. So, I mean, it was awful. What I would like to do now is get into. I know we always do our team of the week. I want to do our team of the season.
Yeah.
Right. So let's do a team of the season.
I haven't seen yours. Normally you send it to me. I haven't seen yours, so this is.
I haven't. You haven't. I didn't send it to you.
There might be a bit of conflict here because
there's probably going to be conflict.
But...
All right, in goal, David Raya for me. Golden boot again. Right, sorry, Golden Glove again. That's 2 years in a row he's won that. And
why has he got that?
Because he kept the most clean sheets, and he was exceptional this season. Exceptional. So me, David Raya.
I think David Raya is a better goalkeeper, but I went for the Forest goalkeeper because I think I had to get somebody from Forest in the back 5, and this is the only one I've gone for. Both got the same amount of clean sheets, but he made 120 saves to Raya's 86.
Well, well done. Well done to him, but Raya's kept the most clean sheets.
Yeah,
Raya for me, when you see that guy coming from crosses, he's commanding. Like distribution, brilliant. He's just had an exceptional season. Great in the Champions League as well. I'm going
to the chat. I'm going Cells.
Right, we leave it to the chat.
He made more saves. The goalkeeper's job is to make saves. 86 to 120. Same on the clean sheets.
Yeah, well, what type of saves? You know what I mean?
Worldies, everyone.
Yeah, I bet. Right back. Who have you got? Give me your back 4.
I've gone Muniz of Crystal Palace, and I'll stake a claim for this because apparently he's made more tackles than any other right back, which I didn't know, but he's brilliant going forward. Saliba, Van Dijk, and then Kirkes.
I agree with 2 of those. There's going to be a lot of conflict here, right? I agree with Kirkes, but I've gone for Timber at Arsenal. I thought maybe I'm being a bit biased, but I thought he was brilliant. Muniz. A lot of people are remembering Muniz for the FA Cup run, right? But and
more tackles than anyone else. More tackles than anyone else.
For the latter part of the season, but I thought that Yuri and Timber, both in the league and I know this is for the Premier League, but for the league and in the Champions League was absolutely brilliant, right? So I went Timber.
I can't believe you're trying to get an Arsenal player in the back 4.
Well, you put Saliba in there, and you put Saliba in. I even put Saliba in there. Right?
Don't tell me you put a Forest centre back in.
No. Kirkes, I agree with. Right, I've gone with that. Virgil van Dijk, I agree with. But I've gone Gabriel Magalhaes. Now, he's been injured since March.
For too long.
It doesn't matter, right? Because up until then, I think he was even better than Virgil van Dijk. I thought he was the best centre-back in the league up until when he got injured in March, right? You can't just discount all of that just because, he was injured for the last few months. But I've gone Gabriel Magalhaes. Again, dispute there, people. Midfield. Give me a midfield.
Hold on a minute. I've just had a WhatsApp. Oh, Arne Slot. Ask Robbie who won the league and why has he got 3 Arsenal players in his back 5.
Right. Well, you've only got one Liverpool fan in there. You've one Liverpool player. And let me just remind you.
Because I've done it fair.
Hold on a minute. Let me just remind you, you know what I mean? Arsenal did come second in the league, right? And they lost 4 games, the same amount of games as Liverpool.
Second every year. I don't need reminding.
I know he comes second every year. And I'm not happy with second, but I'm just saying, right? You know what I mean? You know, that would explain why there are Arsenal players in it. People are carrying on like they were totally rubbish. They lost 4 games, the same amount of games as Liverpool. That's why I've got defenders in there. They defended very well. They were a hard team to beat.
Timber. I can't.
You forget that, innit? People forget that. They were a very hard team to beat. How many losses did Palace have?
Saliba.
Huh?
Saliba. You know, most people at right back have gone with Trent anyway.
Nah.
I'd do that.
Not for me. Right, midfield.
Yeah, this is going to be controversial. I've gone with Declan Rice.
Yep, agree.
Alexi McAllister's been absolutely abused by these awards. No one's putting him in. I think
he's in mine. He's in mine.
Oh, lovely. There you go. And then I've gone Cunha, 15 goals, 6 assists for a Wolves player.
This guy, right? He's trying to get him in just because, he's about to sign for Manchester United. Where's Gravenberch? How can you not have Ryan Gravenberch?
Too defensive, that midfield.
Best defensive midfielder in the league. No, because Declan Rice was driving box to box. That midfield there, Gravenberch, McAllister, right? Because really and truly, Cunha, played more as in the front three.
10. Yeah, attacking midfielder.
No, he's playing that winger. He was sort of had that free role, didn't he? But he's more up front. Even he played a lot of times as a second striker for most of the season. To me, Gravenberch, Rice, McAllister is a great midfield.
I tell you what, your team's going to be boring, mate. You've got 3 Arsenal defenders. You've got 3 bloody defensive midfielders, in my opinion.
No, McAllister's not a defensive midfielder, and Rice is not a defensive midfielder this season.
Box to box at best.
Right. My front 3 is Salah, Isak, and I had to get this player in. I've kind of shoehorned him in a bit, but he deserves to be in there. Brian Mbeumo of Bournemouth. 20 goals this season. Had to come in after Ivan Toney went. I mean, I thought he was outstanding.
Well, snap. I can't see how anybody wouldn't have those 3 players. I know it's a bit shoehorn, like you say, because there's not really a left winger there. But I mean, you're right. Isak's had an amazing season. Salah's going to win Player of the Year. I think he's already won it. And Mbeumo, for what he's done, similar to what Wolves and Cunha's done, but better. Just a ridiculous amount of goals for a Brentford player. I just think he's. Yeah, and it's going to be very interesting where he goes because if I was Newcastle, I'd be all over that. I think he's perfect for their system. Well,
I saw rumours of Man United. There's been rumours of Arsenal. I'd have him. Yeah. He's good.
I don't see how Man United can do that deal without better clubs going in and going, we'll do it. I mean, because I think it's just an absolute bargain. He's 25, 20 goals in a Brentford team, good goals. I just think, all right, might not be a glamorous name, but football's not always about glamour. I think it'd be brilliant for Arsenal, it'd be brilliant for Man United, it'd be brilliant for Liverpool, I think it'd be brilliant signing.
Yeah, you know what somebody said to me the other day? He goes, he kind of reminds him of like when everybody slept on Sadio Mane when he was at Southampton. And when he got that big move, look how good he was. And Mbeumo could be similar. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see where he goes. Mark, your player of the season. I think this is an easy one.
Yeah, I think it's across the season, isn't it? And we sometimes forget, the end of the season. Arsenal used to do it years ago, United as well. You win the league in March and there is a bit of a drop-off. So Salah for me.
Yeah, Salah easily. Your flop of the season.
Oh, God. I'm trying to think back to this. Who have you got?
You lot. Manchester United.
As a team, yeah, easy. I was trying to
It could be team, it could be player. You know what I mean? I mean, listen, you got a few candidates at your place, like Rasmus Højlund has been a big flop. But I think collectively, it's even between you guys or Tottenham. But I give Tottenham a bit of mitigation because they did have some horrendous injuries. But Manchester United, at the start of the season, if someone said to you they're going to finish in 15th, they would have been taking you away to get your, you probably be getting committed. I mean, like, I cannot believe how bad Man United were this season.
No, I'd agree. And I think, although it's not because Spurs won the Europa League, we're talking about Premier League. And I know they lost more games, but I think with all due respect to Spurs, they have had, I think when Van der Ven and Romero have been out for a long time, makes a big difference. But I also think with Spurs, you'd slightly expect it. Whereas with Man United,
do craziness, but not United like this.
Yeah, I think it was terrible. And I think the way the club are acting at the end of the season is abysmal as well. You know, they're going on this tour, smiling, talking about we're improving. Tour? They're out in Malaysia doing an 8 million couple of games this week.
This week?
Yeah. He's just done his press conference, Amrin, with a big smile on his face, saying, I can't believe how many fans we've got. You know, we're improving. The club's just hilarious what it tries to spin. But yeah. But my flop of the season would be old Eric Bristow, Maddison. I think he's a shock. It's hard to find a flop this season, but for a player, I just think, even Bruno Fernandes at Man United got our player of the year. And I think in that position, you've got to be doing a lot more. And I think, I just think Maddison's got to look at himself. And, I know he gets into these arguments with Roy Keane and stuff, but as an attacking midfielder in that team, you've got to be doing a hell of a lot more. And I think Spurs need a big change in that area this summer. Yeah. And
finally, I'm just writing down Maddison there. Finally, the team to watch for next season. I know it's a bit early because no one's done any transfers or anything like that yet, but the team to watch for next Man United, are you joking? Or you could be, listen, no European football, can just solely concentrate on the league. Going to bring in some new signings, and Amorim's going to have his a window. And
I think you could do that, and I understand. I would love Man United to do it. I think nothing's beyond possibility, but I think it's too close to home for me to predict that because I'll look an idiot if it goes wrong. I think that next season, there's one or two. I'm looking at the top. I think it's really difficult to think that Villa or Bournemouth or Brentford could replicate it again. I think Newcastle are going to struggle with Champions League. I'm looking at Arsenal to win the league, which I think would make them, striker dependent though. Liverpool's early transfer window stuff's been really good. Yeah. And I've got a feeling that if Chelsea actually got a striker and a goalkeeper, I do think they've got foundations to be a good team. Cole Palmer had a very quiet season this year. But I think the Club World Cup could have an impact on City and Chelsea. So, yeah, I've not really answered the question, but I think team to watch next season, it's got to be Arsenal. They've got to win the league next year. I know that's second to first, but I think they've got to win the league next year.
Yeah, I'll go Arsenal just because of the pressure to win it. But like you said, striker dependent. If we don't get a striker, we ain't winning it. Simple.
Who do you want? Gyökeres, Sesko?
Gyökeres for me. That goal scoring record, that's what I want. Like Sesko, I looked at how many goals he scored this season. He hasn't hit 20. I don't want no project, right? If he comes, he comes. We have to accept it, but it's a striker. But for me, who's the hottest striker in European football right now? There's a few. Isak, of course, and Gyökeres is there. He's scored the most goals this season. Go and get him. You know what I mean? I hope so. Anyway, listen, Mark, it's been really enjoyable doing the show. We're going to be back on Friday, of course, right, where we will reveal who has won. We've been going head to head every week on, getting scores. We're going to find out who won it on Friday. All will be revealed. And I'm sure we'll look ahead to the Champions League final between Inter Milan and PSG. Mark, thanks very much.
No worries. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on this season. Looking forward to the next one. I think that's the good thing about the end of this season. There's so many people doing transfer activity. It's sort of whetting the appetite for next year already. And there's going to be some good players in the Premier League.
Yeah. Watch along for the game in Malaysia. I'm sure you'll be doing it anyway.
We will. Well, we will. But I mean, I don't know what it is.
You don't sound that excited about it.
It will be a Q&A, won't it? You know, God. I mean, this is the worst. Yeah, I know why we're doing it for money, but bloody hell, just all go away and hide for 2 months and give us a rest. You know.
Thanks very much, Mark.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.